Hey everybody, it's Addie again, and it is the fourth read of the year, and for this read I chose Man's Search for Meaning by Victor Frankl, and this was a book about his journey through surviving the concentration camps and his development of logotherapy afterwards, and just his input and his insight as far as what he saw happening around him. And it was a very good read. So I'm glad that I chose this one for my next one. So this book is about, how many pages was it? 160? There's like an afterword and a post thing, so it was about like 165, 163. So it's not super long, and so I got to kind of take my time reading it. I did spend I read like half of it the first time I was going around, and then I got busy during the week, so I had to pick it up towards the end of the week, and I finished it today, so I'm going to be reviewing it. So I'm going to go ahead and read the back little description, and then I'll get into my favorite parts. So it says, psychiatrist Victor Frankl's memoir has riveted generations of readers with its descriptions of life in Nazi death camps and its lesson for spiritual survival. Based on his own experience and the stories of his patients, Frankl argues that we cannot avoid suffering, but we can choose how to cope with it and find meaning in it and move forward. At the heart of his theory, known as logotherapy, is a conviction that the primary human drive is not pleasure, but the pursuit of what we find meaningful. Man's Search for Meaning has become one of the most influential books in America, and it continues to inspire us all to find significance in the very act of living. Born in Vienna in 1905, Victor Frankl published more than 30 books on theoretical and clinical psychology and gained international renown. He died in 1997. Sorry. Wow. So this book was, there's about, I would say 4 parts to it, 2 big parts and then 2 little parts. So in the first part, he describes his experience. And it's really interesting reading this, that he actually had a choice to use his visa and get safe passage to America, but decided to stay back and take care of his parents. And then soon after, they were all arrested and taken to the concentration camp. So this whole journey happened because he decided to stay back and take care of his parents, which I think that's wild. And so there's a couple parts in this book where I was like, there's a lot in here just because I come from a psychology background and I'm in therapy, pursuing a therapy licensure. So for me, of course, this was very interesting. But I think just as far as an autobiography, I suggest that anybody read this. It was very well written. Some of the concepts when it gets to logotherapy might be hard to understand, but just take your time and do your little research if you need to figure out what things mean. But it's definitely a good read. And so if you're wondering what's logotherapy, like I've never heard of it, I'm going to kind of describe it, and he defines it in the book. So he says that logotherapy is less of retrospective, and it's less introspective. It's more focusing on the future and what meanings can be fulfilled by the patient in his or her future. So it's a meaning-centered psychology, which basically means that it's about finding meaning in life, and that meaning that you're finding in life that should be pushing you forward. And so in logotherapy, the patient is actually confronted and reoriented toward his or her meaning of life. So within logotherapy, you're basically forced to present what you think meaning of life is, why you continue to go, and whatever issues or problems you're having, kind of putting that in context of your meaning and what's really driving you. And so logos is a Greek word that stands for meaning, and so that's where the logotherapy comes from, meaning therapy. And so according to logotherapy, this striving to find meaning in one's life is the primary motivational force in man. And so just that's a little definition in case you're wondering, what's logotherapy? And that's part of the second half of the book where he kind of goes over the things he noticed in the concentration camp and what that has to do with his studies and his theory. There's actually a really interesting part in this book where he describes a time that there was like a period of time where more individuals died than had ever died in the camp before. And it was actually the week after, or the week between Christmas and New Year's, or the week after Christmas to New Year's, that more people had died in the camp than had ever died before. And what was interesting was that the conditions of the camp were still the same. The weather was still the same. Nothing had changed. And so when he was reflecting on this and talking to various individuals from his experience there, it turns out that the individuals that died had actually been hoping and looking forward to seeing their families at Christmas. And so that was their meaning and their reason for continuing on and continuing to live and continuing to survive in this challenging, difficult situation, is because they had hoped that I'm going to see my family at Christmas, like we're going to be freed and released. And so once Christmas came and passed, that hope was squelched, and mentally they just gave up. And so their body also gave up as they gave up mentally. And so I just found that was interesting, that the things that we hope for or look forward to can really affect us, not only mentally, but physically and emotionally. Like if you've ever thought of a time when, this probably happened maybe when you were a kid, and your parents say, oh, we're going to go to the theme park, or we're going to go to Disneyland. You're just like, yeah, I just got to hold on until that time. I just got to wait. And you're counting the days down, and you're just like, okay, I'm so excited, and let me not get in trouble at school, and et cetera, et cetera. And that day comes and something happens where they say, sorry, we can't go. Maybe next time. You probably throw a huge fit. Your whole countenance changes. Your inside, you feel this rock in your stomach. You're just angry. It changes your whole mind-body perception of everything. So I thought that was interesting that he noted that in here, that the things that we put our hope and trust in really impact how we react and act, and how our body reacts to things too. A lot of people get sick, and a book I'm going to be reading next has to do with resiliency, which I'm really excited about, because I'm trying to look and do some research into resiliency as far as people combating diseases like cancer and things like that. And so I definitely feel like this has weight to it, as far as what keeps us going in the face of our sufferings. And then there was another part that I really, I loved. A part that I feel like I can take away and apply this to my own life, because when I read these books, I don't just read them. I kind of try to see, what can I apply to my own life? What can I pull from this that can help me grow and develop? So there was a part where he's talking about the essence of existence, and he says, this emphasis on responsibleness is reflected in the categorical imperative of logotherapy, which is live as if you were living already for the second time, and as if you have acted the first time as wrongly as you are about to act now. So I'm going to break that down for you, because it's a little, okay, what does that mean? So basically I took it to mean every moment of your life that you're living, almost act as if you are getting a second chance to do this moment over again, and that the first time you did it wrong, how would you act now? So say you're giving a presentation, and put yourself in the mindset that this is the second time I'm doing this. The first time I was nervous, I was shaky, I didn't look at the audience. Like, keep those things in mind and almost act as if you're getting a second chance to do something over again, and treat it as such. And usually when we get a second chance to do things over again, we know the things that we got to work on, and we take it so much more seriously. We're so much more focused. We're so much more dedicated. We take risks. We jump outside of our box and our comfort zones. So for me, that means act as if every moment is my second chance to do something over again and to do it well. So in everything that you come across in life, do it well. Act as if it's your second chance and let's go for it. And so when I read that, I was like, man, that's powerful. And so that's a part of logotherapy. So I'm not going to read any more of it. Don't want to spoil anything, but I definitely think this really puts life into perspective. When you are coming across and reading something and reading about someone else's suffering and reading about what they endured and how they overcame, it really puts life in perspective. And so I definitely feel like this is a book that will help change your perspective. If you're coming across something or you feel like you're going through a difficult time or suffering, read this. You will definitely feel like life is not as hard. So I would give this book an 8. It was a quick read for me, and it was interesting for me, not only the autobiography, but the logotherapy part. And so I would definitely recommend to read it. It's a really tiny, tiny book, and it was great. So that is my review for Man's Search for Meaning by Victor E. Frankl. And really quickly before I end, as I was mentioning earlier, you guys see my books piling up. This is not even the half of them. This is not even like 1/18. We have so many books. So this coming up next week, I'm going to be reading this book called Type R. And so it's about using resiliency to springboard you to growth and development in your life. And so resiliency is a topic that I've been interested in for a very long time. I feel like it's a very crucial part of who I am. And so with that, I'm going to be reading more books on resiliency, about overcoming, about that's probably a theme, if you guys have noticed with the books I've been reading, that that's kind of how it is. I'm not reading like Harry Potter or whatever. I'm reading books that are going to help me in my personal life. So that's next week, but thank you all for watching. And if you have any questions about the book I just read this past week, or any thoughts about it, any ideas you want to share, or anything, go ahead and put it in the comments below. And I think that is all for me, and I will see you next week. Bye.